Ladies and gentlemen, I'm recording this video on November the 10th, 2025, and I am very happy to report to all of you that the drama involving Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura has finally come to a conclusion. Hikaru has officially qualified to the 2025 Candidates Tournament. Friendly reminder, why was there any drama at all? Well, Hikaru was vying for the rating spot. Essentially, the Candidates Tournament, which is an 8-player, double round-robin tournament that crowns the next challenger to the World Chess Championship, always has a rating spot. The highest-rated player in the world in a certain period that plays a minimum amount of games. But those games can basically be played anywhere. And so Hikaru needed to play 22 games and not lose a bunch of rating points. So that's what he did. Hikaru became the Louisiana state champion. He became the Iowa state champion. He won a tournament in Canada on Prince Edward Island, which I had never heard of before until he went to that tournament. And he just concluded a tournament in Dulles, Virginia. And let me tell you something right now. I have been to Dulles, Virginia. Ain't nothing in Dulles, Virginia. And if you live there, I'm not calling you nothing, but your surroundings are just about the same. Now, I am not trying to be a pretentious New Yorker and say that New York is everything and nowhere else exists, but Hikaru really went to 4 of the most obscure remote places that he could find a tournament. He played the 22 games, and I'm going to be sharing the games from this tournament. This tournament actually featured some very good opposition. He has been playing some titled players, including a Grandmaster in this event, and Hikaru now is the highest rated player to play 40 games, and he will be in the Candidates Tournament unless Magnus Carlsen decides to play the games before the new year or Garry Kasparov unretires. And something tells me neither of those things are going to happen. With all that in mind, let us see the last 5 games of the Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura dramatic road to the candidates, which made the International Chess Federation implement a new policy that basically limits the rating gains if you are significantly higher rated than one of your opponents. And friendly reminder that every time I mention the International Chess Federation in one of my videos, I will continue to mention the fact that I do not consider them a serious sporting organization due to their, thus far, inaction in the Daniel Naroditsky case. And I will continue to do this. Thanks. Okay, here we go. Hikaru versus Tanush Dokka, 1800 rated player. Probably a young kid, although I maybe should have looked it up. Could be a 40-year-old. Have no idea. Hikaru opens with knight to f3. His last 5 games, I should say. The opponent copies with knight to f6. And we have a ready. Hikaru plays d4, and now really the moment for black to decide, do you just want to copy Hikaru all the way or what? And black plays d6. The King's Indian defense. Which is funny because Hikaru himself has played this opening, I don't know, 100, 200, 300 times. And people who play the King's Indian defense use reference games of Hikaru to play this opening. And it's just so funny that now you're playing Hikaru, who plays c4, knight bd7, which is a move. Black can also play c6. Black can also play knight c6 and e5. Now, white has chosen a very particular setup. White has not chosen, the traditional setup where there's a pawn on e4. So black goes knight bd7 and prepares the move e5, and Hikaru plays e4, and then he plays this move h3. I actually think Hikaru had this exact same position already in the road to the candidates. This controls the g4 square and always prepares various king moves if you need them. And after pawn takes, knight takes, white just has a very stable position. I mean, white defends this pawn very nicely. Then white plays bishop e3. Black plays the natural knight c5. But now, when you consider who has sort of made the more useful long-term moves, it's white. Even though both of you have been playing very logically, this h3 move is extremely important to counteract the very powerful knight to g4, which would target the bishop. And ultimately, what's going to happen is black is going to run out of useful moves first. And I think right here, the player with the black pieces goes, I don't actually know what to do. Now, what's funny is that if anything, this knight could go there and sometimes reposition itself. But once you play bishop d7, you really quickly run out of useful moves. So black plays c6, rook d1, and I mean, Hikaru has maximized the presence of every piece. You know, black continues to kind of like play, you know, queen c7. But now the 2800 is going to kick in, and here comes f4. And, you know, Tanush plays rook d8, and now Hikaru can continue with g4 and a strong pawn attack. But first he makes a waiting move, bishop f2. Black also plays bishop c8. The rook has now been transferred there, so it makes plenty of sense. a3, maybe looking for b4. Black goes rook e7. And what's funny is that Hikaru here has this move knight to b5, just straight up sacrificing a knight, and it actually wins the game by force. The idea is that you deflect the queen away from the defense of the rook, and then you can play pawn to e5. So something like knight here, takes, and then the bishop is really strong, the pawn is really strong. Hikaru goes b4. I feel like he basically, against these players, wanted to take zero risk, because if he miscalculates something, he will lose to someone 1,000 points lower than him. And my goodness, the Gotham video of that would absolutely slap. No, I mean, joking aside, you know, b4 is obviously a reasonable move. It's clearly what he was preparing. Knight to f3, it's clear that white is the one that's going to overwhelm. I mean, when literally all of your pieces are confined to 3 rows, but the board is 8 of them, you know, you're only playing on 24 of the available 64 squares. It's probably not going to really work. And yeah, at some point, you know, black tries to fight back. Hikaru plays knight back to c3, and actually at this point, there was this moment, knight d2 was considered like a really big mistake. You know, I'm kind of surprised Hikaru didn't jump forward, but he's going to get another chance, because at some point, black will go down to quite low time. And actually, look here, Tanush basically from this moment, move 23, had a minute remaining on the clock. And it was just a matter of time. And at this point with white, you don't have to do much. You sort of have to wait for the opponent to panic in time trouble. And he will. You know, 24 seconds on the clock. Excellent piece coordination here by white. At some point, these pawns just become absolutely fatal. There is nothing you can do. And Hikaru gets the second pawn. And now he is just completely winning. He has a 2-pawn advantage. He has the bishop pair, which is going to help him attack. And he has d6. So the pawn is just going to be really, really strong. Black plays on for a little bit. But Hikaru totally swarms. Bishop b5, complete dominance. That's why the bishop is better than the knight, frankly, in most positions. e6, nice move, sacking the bishop, but you have a fork. He wins the bishop. He wins the knight. And I respect the young man for playing until checkmate. I don't actually know. I just assumed, actually, because there are so many young, strong players in the US now. And that is Hikaru. That is Hikaru's first out of 5 games. And then every game was hard. Like, every game there was a game. No game was easy. This game was crazy. So here Hikaru is playing Hanim Ishmailova, who I've never heard of before. 2,000 rated Azerbaijani player. Somehow made it, had the misfortune of making it to Dulles, Virginia. Like, if you're from Azerbaijan, I don't know, I only know one place in Azerbaijan, and it's Baku. Baku and Dulles, Virginia shouldn't exist in the same universe. They should be there should be different timelines. You know what I'm saying? Baku is a beautiful place. I don't know. Anyway, Dulles, I'm sorry. I will not rub it in any further. But like, you got way prettier cities in Virginia. I mean, it's like it's where the U.S. began, if you will. There's so much history and whatever. And you get the Dulles, Virginia. Sorry. I'm going to stop now. Anyway, Hikaru was playing Hanim, and this was an epic game. So white played e4, Hikaru played the Sicilian, white played the Alpin. Solid system, low risk system, e5, d4, Hikaru went e6. Fine. Developing, d6, bishop e7. I gotta tell you, playing this position for a win with black is so hard. It's so hard. Like, the Alpin Sicilian is the opening all the best players in the world play when they need a no-lose situation. Hikaru plays bishop d7. He's going to have to take a risk at some point. White trades the knight. Very active pieces in the center. Knight c6 is just straight up deemed a mistake by the computer. I don't really understand why, but actually it's because white can generate a strong attack. It's actually, this pawn's really good. And here, black doesn't have mobility, and white in many positions is just generating a powerful initiative. So the queen goes to a5. The pawn is hanging. Now, you're very tempted to protect it, but the best move is rook b1. She plays queen e4, which threatens mate. Hikaru saw that, unfortunately. And now bishop h6, very logical. You attack the rook, you kick the rook out. The king is sort of left alone now for black. And now you should protect the pawn. The computer wants to not protect the pawn if you're going rook b1. But okay, rook b1 anyway. Now, rook b8, Hikaru playing it solidly. And white plays rook fc1, which I like, but me personally, I would have started some sort of, maybe that's next. Maybe now we play, some sort of h4. Bishop c4, though. Okay, bishop c4 still poking and prodding at the black position. But see, Hikaru's doing this really well. He deliberately goes for something where white kind of has the onus to continue attacking, and it's not so simple. It's not so straightforward to just launch some sort of, devastating attack. Queen a4, all right? White plays queen back to e2. Black plays knight a5, and now Hikaru is going to start taking over the game because he's going to take the bishop. That is the exact degree of imbalance that he needed. He will now not get mated. Queen a6. He deliberately goes to an endgame. He tries to damage his own pawn structure and go to the endgame, and white obliges, and Hikaru is basically saying, I'm 800 points higher rated than you, therefore the endgame is where I have the best chance in a position like this with the time advantage. Not so simple. Not so simple. So white now just has to be solid. And be solid, white was. So first of all, we go here. It looks like the white bishop is trapped. You play h4, you have to give up a pawn, and the bishop will run away. But now c4 and c5. White just goes for it. Like, white could have played rook a1. And after rook d6, just went c5, and then rook c4. White goes for it. Look at this rook sacrifice. I mean, you got to give some credit here. 20 seconds on the clock for the player rated 2,000. And the idea is actually quite nice. I mean, white is going to get very strong pawn play. Pawns are sort of spread out for black. The computer doesn't even think that black is winning, by the way, which is kind of mind-blowing. King f7, bishop back to e3. Apparently, that's a mistake. Apparently, you needed to go bishop d2, bishop a5, bishop c7. So not bishop c7 specifically, but the bishop is supposed to fight for c7 and the pawn on b4, and black just really struggles against the two pawns. But if you go bishop e3, that gives Hikaru enough time to go here and then bring his king to the best square, which is e6. Now he's very close to the pawns. Now he's actually totally winning, and in this position has his biggest advantage should he play rook b5 and king d5, and that is the way he should win the game, rook b5, king d5. He doesn't do that, though, and what's crazy is he goes h3 trying to open up the white king, and a few moves later, in this position, rook b5 is apparently the right idea. He goes f4. He gives away the pawn. So he goes takes, and bishop takes f4, and thinks that here he is easily winning. Why? Well, he split the pawns up. Practically speaking, probably, but apparently not. Apparently, he should have went here or something a long time ago, and only then went for f4, and then tried to take with the rook instead of with the king. So the wild thing about this position is, even though practically speaking, of course, he is winning because white has 10 seconds on the clock for the remainder of the game because there's no bonus time. This is an equal endgame. White is straight up just holding a 2,800 level player to an equal endgame. Hikaru's going to rely on his last pawn. That's it. The only way that Hikaru can win this position is some degree of a trick, because rook versus bishop is a draw. Rook versus bishop and pawn is a draw. Rook and pawn versus bishop and pawn is a draw in many positions. Probably not this one. Why? Because the pawn is a passer. So you're just going to push the pawn. If the pawn was here, it would be a lot harder to break through because it's the same pawn. But if the pawn is an outside pass pawn, that is the way that Hikaru is going to try to win this. Yeah, I gotta tell you, he ended up having a chance, on the 67th move or something, 68th move. Hold on. Right here. Yeah, so rook h1 is winning. King here, check, take, rook g4. So the way black wins here is check here, take, rook g4 attacking the bishop. The bishop moves, and then black plays king d3, rook g7, and apparently is winning here. You have some really weird fortress where the king is far away. I don't know. He didn't play it like that. He did something slightly differently. It was equal again for a moment. Then a move later, he was again winning if he goes rook h1. Finally, the way this game was decided is the black king walked in, and this move allowed king g2, which wins because now white has made it. Here, if white continued to just hold the line on the e-file, I mean, I don't know how much longer this game would have went. It would have went to 100 moves. but white plays here, and Hikaru goes king, check, and this is losing because the pawn runs, and white lost their last pawn. So obviously you're not going to be able to defend this position, but king and bishop versus king and rook is a draw. It's only a win because of this one pawn, and it gets there in the end, and black resigned. I mean, just not black resigned, white resigned. And an amazing game, though, really. Like, 800-point difference, and, like, holding in such a way. White should be very proud. I don't know what white's chess dreams are, but dream big, really. Like, excellent game. Like I said, these games did not get any easier. In the next round, Hikaru played Matthew Diao. Actually, I've never seen a name like that. Like, Matthew Guo? Yeah, but Guo Diao. I've never... So, is Guo the middle name? Because I thought in Chinese there were no middle names. But maybe I don't know. But I've never seen Guo Diao. Like, I've never seen that. Maybe somebody who understands can explain in the comments. I like to learn from all of you. And this player is rated 2300. So this player is already better than me. My rating is higher, but I suck. So Matthew is probably a better player than I am. And he's playing against Hikaru, and let's just see what happens. So c4, c6, right? Young, 2300. I think Matthew's like a teenager. Queen c2. Hikaru goes for the queen c2 Slav variation, where you bring out your queen, and in many lines, actually, the queen ends up going back, but then you can support the center e4, right? Because black gave up a center pawn. Bishop g4, and here I was kind of, like, shocked at the way the opening went. So, knight d2, defending the knight, and then developing the bishop. All of this makes perfect sense. Then Hikaru plays... it's clear that when you do this, you want to play g4 and get the bishop. g4 and get the bishop. That's what you want to do. You want to push the bishop back to the g6 square, and then you want to win it. We have e3 played. Okay. Knight bd7. G4, and Hikaru goes for the bishop, and Matthew plays the best move. So when the opponent is instigating with you on the outskirts of the board, you should strike back in the center. And that's what he does. It's a great move. He understands the position very well. Hikaru takes. And now, you know, white can castle and whatever. Hikaru ends up doing this, which is a shocking move. I was like, what? And when the knight comes... The king is still in the middle, and it's going to go here, but I guess, I mean, Hikaru obviously knew that. So check, king up. That's the idea. So the idea was that if the knight takes on c1, this passive bishop, you bring both rooks, and then this king is shockingly safe, and also Hikaru has to do this for the memes. Make no mistake, Hikaru went into this line so he could play a delayed bomb cloud. I mean... We're doing all this for content anyway, right? Like, the candidates is not... He's not trying to be the world champion. Hikaru is trying to become the first world champion streamer. That's, you know, because chess historically has been like, oh, you know, you gotta, like, fully focus on chess, and that's the only way to become the world champion. He's trying to show that, like, this whole thing, you know, I'm memeing a little bit, but I think when Hikaru saw this possibility, he was just like, I gotta go for it. Here's the problem. The knight actually does not have to take the bishop. Matthew can go here, and complete the diamond, because he's also, you know... he's also a memer, and he goes d7, e5, d3, and finishes up the diamond. And now, white is just left with a king in the middle of the board. Now, what's funny is, white probably thought he can go rook d1 and run the king over here and do what's called castling by hand. Here's the problem. That's not that simple, because black is going to go knight d5, attacking the queen, and then black is going to bring the bishop out somewhere, and then black is going to bring the queen, and then he's going to bring the rooks. His position is going to be really strong. So Hikaru goes here, knight d5, and it was at this moment that on a high depth, Stockfish was like, -2! I was like, what? Yeah. So apparently, in this position, if Matthew retreats his knight to attack the queen, getting out of the trade, and then after he does this, puts his bishop on h4, white is significantly worse. Why? Well, let's say white just goes, what is this? I'm just going to go here. Black is now in time to play the move queen f6. And you don't get to walk your king to safety. If you try to defend yourself, I come with my rook and my other rook, and you lose. You run out of time. This incredible idea, knight e6, bishop h4. Knight e6, bishop h4 is so nasty that the longer that Stockfish thinks, the more hopeless it becomes. Like, it's like, I don't know what to do. It wants to go here. And then it wants to just, like, continue to run anyway, but then black continues to attack. Knight e6, bishop h4 is brilliant. It's, like, really, it's very, very high-level stuff, but it's also the only way that black can get this minus 2-point advantage. Matthew thinks for 10 minutes, and he doesn't find it. He plays queen b6. Natural move, defends the knight, tries to bring the rooks to the middle, but misses the moment. And that is the only chance that you're ever going to get against the 2800. They're not going to let you get another one. Hikaru quickly shuffles out of the way, and now he is completely safe. Because now his king is in the center safely and also can transfer very fast. The queen is on the wrong side. The queen needed to be here. And now he will do exactly what he did against the 2000 rated player. Matthew actually in this game had a completely equal endgame. 2 rooks and 6 pawns, and on top of that, the worst possible combination of bishops, the opposite colored bishops, the fabled opposite colored bishops. Matthew is also holding Hikaru to an equal position. I wonder if at any point Hikaru was like, what the, like these 2300s are on another level, man. 10 years ago, 2000s and 2300s were not this good. Like, they really weren't. And Hikaru has to, tries to go for, a little pawn giveaway here. Of course, black should play bishop b6. Or, yes, bishop b6. I mean, both moves are fine. Hikaru goes b5, and now we have this position. And really, the only chance that white has here is to use the pawn majority and maybe this weakness. That is it. And you have to keep the rook on. Rook's off, hopeless. You have to keep the rook on the board. So he plays b4, bishop c6. Matthew ends up giving away a pawn for activity. He did not have to do that. But that's what happens when you get low time. I mean, he could have played rook d6, but okay, even this position is equal because he's going to win this pawn back. And g6, rook g5. Again, you're going to use the pawn majority. You have more pawns than the opponent, so you're going to start pushing them. And what ultimately happens in the game is we get, Matthew down low on time, king g7, Hikaru starts advancing, it gets very scary, and ultimately the correct combination of pressure, this, and now black is really in a lot of trouble, and now black is simply lost, because you cannot defend the attack on the pawn from 2 directions. How did this happen? Black just got too passive. And Hikaru put the right pressure. He wins literally all the pawns. And this is game over because it's a 4-0. You are not going to survive this. Matthew plays on for a little longer. But this is the end of the game. h6 is coming. g6 is coming. The pawns are promoting. This pawn is not promoting. It will be stopped. And Hikaru wins his 3rd game of the tournament. And for this game, gained like 0.2 rating, which the effort did not match the result. And credit to Matthew, who, man, I mean, that would have been nuts if he found knight e6, bishop h4. I don't know how Hikaru would have pulled off magic there, because he is the best defender in the world, but it would have been wild. Now, for this next game, Hikaru played one of the coolest... Hikaru played somebody with one of the coolest names I have ever seen. I have never seen a person with 4 separate letters abbreviated in their name. I've never seen this before. I've seen in Indian names, 1 letter, Gukesh, D. I've never seen this. Dude's name is a code. Now, I've actually played De Silva online. This person is from Sri Lanka, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, De Silva's name stands for Loku Manage Susal Theujan De Silva. Now, when I think De Silva, I'm like, Portuguese, Brazilian. I've watched enough UFC, okay? Silva, like that's, anyway, De Silva, right? So anyway, we got LMST De Silva, the most gangster name ever, and I've played this individual online versus Hikaru. Another person, Sri Lanka. How did you end up in Dulles? Sorry. E4, C5. Another player goes for the Alpin. And this time Hikaru goes D5 and plays G6. And actually, I think G6 is what Hikaru played in the candidates against the Alpin when Gukesh played the Alpin against him. Knight f3, bishop g7. Hikaru trying to be a little bit more provocative in this game. Although at this point, I think he doesn't really, he's not going to take massive risk. Queen b3, knight d4, and obviously this is much more of an interesting game than the previous Alapin. But now it is, it's black who is probably slightly worse. This pawn is not so great. How is Hikaru going to outplay his young opponent in this game? Not, I think Mr. LMST, I don't even know what to call him, frankly. Like, what do I call him? LMST? Rook e1, knight f5. He's 19 years old, though, so former prodigy. Bishop e3. That's unnecessary. I don't think we need to give away the bishop so early, although the plans in this position are extremely mysterious. I will tell you what the computer wants. It wants knight d2. You think, oh, knight d2, obviously to go. No, it wants knight d2, then it wants to put this bishop back on f1, and then it wants to, I mean, I think white just was like, well, this is how I'm going to make progress. Knight e3 and rook e3. And now black should probably move the king to h8 to move his pawn and defend the center. Hikaru does that, high understanding of the position, getting out of the way of the pin. White plays queen a3, trying to apply some pressure to the rook and take this pawn. But rock solid. Rook d1, everything is good in the white position. Bishop f5, everything is good in the black position. What is going to happen when the sides need to clash? So Hikaru offers a trade of rooks. White thinks about it. Do we want to take? Do we want to keep the tension? Do we want to play a nothing move? Okay. We play a nothing move. We change nothing about the position. Hikaru also plays a little bit of a nothing move, although this one obviously restricting the position a little bit. White now plays queen a4, and the question becomes, how long can you keep staring at Hikaru? How long can you keep the tension? Bishop back to d7. Okay. Queen c2 back. Black can play several moves. The position's equal. Hikaru plays bishop back to f8, getting out of the diagonal and repositioning. White goes here, also trying to reposition. Hikaru also repositioning. Nothing is happening, by the way. Nothing. In fact, the computer wants queen e4, king g7, queen back to this square, and then it wants to repeat moves. It literally gives up. It doesn't think that there's any way to make progress in the position. White goes here. Black goes here. White's trying to reposition, go queen e2. Problem is, at some point, these pawns could get moving for black. And if they do get moving, they're going to really restrict the space. And again, as always, white could ultimately panic in low time. So rook d2, Hikaru now plays e4, and he plays, he's going to, he's putting in the clause. e4, a4. So now white is restricted, and you do feel like nothing is happening, but it's not going in your direction. Bishop back to a2. Queen e7, at some point f5 should happen. The bishop goes to that side of the board. You cannot take the pawn on a4. You go here. I take it. I attack the bishop. I, of course, move my king. Rook b7 is maybe not the cleanest. Like, the computer still wants f5, but this is wrong. You can sort of feel the disconnect of the pieces, whereas the pieces for black, very logically positioned, f5, f4, and the e-pawn, and, this pawn is weak. And even if this is not the most accurate continuation, the pawn structure has fallen for white, and there's the move. That's the move we've been waiting for. You get perfect coordination, f4, e3, and in a position where there was not much to do, it was the more experienced player that managed to do the more effective, but seemingly innocuous things until he promoted his pawn. And what's incredible about the position is that was literally never supposed to happen. Like, you look at this position, you go, how is white going to lose? How is black going to win? This pawn became a queen against all odds. And that is really the experience of playing somebody who is 2800. Like, because ultimately, in a position where you're both lulling, nothing is happening, you're still going to panic before the opponent, because you're going to feel like it's just a matter of time till you put a piece on the wrong square. And yeah, I mean, if white had played queen e4, Hikaru would have made some move. You would have went queen e3, stopping the bishop from going to c5. You just see ghosts. At some point, you start thinking like, oh, my opponent is going to attack me. And then you got to like, which piece do I put? Like b3, whatever. And yeah, black outplayed white. And that takes us to our final game of the Hikaru Road to the Candidates. Playing Praveen Balakrishnan. When I was growing up, Praveen was much younger than me, I think. I think he's a few years younger than me. Always a good player. But then became GM. Became GM, I think, 17, 18 years old. Now I think Praveen is in college. I don't know. Maybe graduated, but is a GM. And Hikaru officially qualifies to the candidates when each side makes a move. So Hikaru plays c4. Praveen shows up a minute late to the game and plays e6. And as of this moment, Hikaru is in the 2026 Candidates Tournament. It's an official game. If Black had forfeited, which would have been hilarious, but he sadly showed up for the game. But it was good for him because Hikaru played knight c3, Black played d5, Hikaru went here, we got a Rogozin, bishop to b4, queen a4 check, and I was thinking how Hikaru would approach this game because it's a GM, it's 2500, it's the strongest player that he's actually played while, playing these tournaments. Black showed good opening preparation, playing one of the main lines of the Rogozin, and then after this trade in the center, and rook d1, and bishop e1 attacking the queen, Hikaru went bishop d3, and offered a draw. And Black accepted. Duh. I mean, or you could have the experience of playing Hikaru, but yeah, Hikaru made a draw, 15 moves, donated 3 rating points with it. I mean, I don't know how much did he lose for this game? Yeah, about, let's say, 3 to 4 rating points Praveen got for drawing Hikaru. And the road to the 2026 candidates is officially complete. 22 games. Hikaru became the Louisiana state champion and the Iowa state champion. Not quite. He doesn't quite get those titles because he is not from those states. There are different champions, but he won both those tournaments. He won this tournament that he played in Canada, and he won the tournament in Dulles, I think. And yeah, maybe he tied for first with Praveen. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. And that is all. 22 games played in tournaments of 5, 5, 6, 6 rounds. And there you have it. Hikaru's in the candidates. Joining quite a field, Thus far in the candidates, we have candidates 2026. Anish Giri, who won the Grand Swiss. We have Fabiano Caruana, who won the previous circuit. We have Bluebaum, who got second in the Grand Swiss. Probably we will have Prague, who is leading the circuit. And then we will have 3 players from the World Cup. So the candidates are soon to be 7 out of 8 complete, which is very exciting. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.